Penguins will look to kick off 2026 on a high note as the Detroit Red Wings come to town tonight, and Pat and I are going to get you all set for that game right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins, and you can follow the show's Instagram account at LockedOn_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. First off, Happy New Year to everyone that's listening/watching. We've made it to 2026. Hope you all had a very safe and happy New Year's Eve last night. And with that, Pat, the Penguins will kick off the new year against the top team in the Atlantic Division tonight in the Detroit Red Wings. They're coming off a 2-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets on New Year's Eve. So the Penguins, once again, will get a team on the second half of a back-to-back with travel. The Penguins are waiting for the Red Wings, just like they were waiting for the Hurricanes and the Chicago Blackhawks. So, Pat, the schedule makers are helping out the Penguins right now. They're going to screw them over later in the season when they have to do something like this multiple times. But right now, you'll take it when you can. But, of course, you still have to go out there and win the game. This is the first of a home-and-home between the two teams. Penguins will play tonight in Pittsburgh against the Red Wings, and then they'll go to Little Caesars Arena in Detroit for the next matchup on Saturday, and that's a matinee game. And by the way, Pat, it's funny. They beat that Winnipeg team last night, the Red Wings. That Winnipeg team, remember when that was a big test for the Penguins? They're in the basement now of the NHL, how fast things can change. But let's get into the Red Wings. This has been a very big surprise team this year. They're trying to show everyone that their time is now and that the quote-unquote Yzer plan has worked out. I mean, they still got to get to the playoffs, but they're 24-14-3. Lucas Raymond has been fantastic. I mean, he is so fun with the puck on his stick. 11 goals, 43 points in 39 games. He is such a great playmaker, has a decent release, but the playmaking ability, the skating ability is top-notch. I love watching him play when I can. Alex DeBrincat, he's been great. 20 goals, 40 points in 41 games. You can make an argument that he should be on the Team USA Olympic team. And then Dylan Larkin, 21 goals, 37 points in 41 games. Larkin, we all know, is going to be on the Olympic team, and rightfully so. I thought he was really good at the Four Nations. I'm excited to see him at the Olympics. And then how about Mo Seider? You and I talked a lot about him already earlier this week. He is having a great year for the Red Wings. 7 goals, 31 points in 41 games. He has been great as their number one defenseman, really good at driving play in the offensive zone, going from defense to offense, really good in his own zone as well. So their high-end talent is really leading the charge for the Red Wings this year. Goaltending-wise, they made that swing for John Gibson over the offseason. He's been all right, .893, so you want to get that save percentage up a little bit, but it's at least working right now. I mean, they're 24-14-3, first place in the Atlantic. Cam Talbot is the other goalie at .889. They had Gibson play last night, so I think you're going to see Cam Talbot tonight. But in terms of the Red Wings, Pat, it's all about slowing down a couple of those high-end guys. Dylan Larkin, again, has been great, and especially Lucas Raymond with the way that he can set up players on a dime. Those are the two you really got to watch out for. And then, of course, Mo Seider with the way he's playing in all three zones. Those are the guys I really want to focus on. DeBrincat too, but those are the main three.
Yeah, this is a really good Detroit Red Wings team, and don't let a lot of the overall statistics fool you about this team, whether you're looking at their analytics, whether you're looking at their top line numbers. Hell, you brought up the goalies. Yeah, they're both sub 900, but they had such a nightmare of a start to the season that they're still kind of digging their way out of that statistically. Of the last month, they have just been on a complete tear. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won they've won 5 of their last 6. They are just clicking on all cylinders. It's a really, really good Red Wings team, which is nice to see because this is a team that has not reached the postseason since 2016. Their beautiful new arena, Little Caesars Arena, is maybe the best in the league. And it's a shame it hasn't seen playoff hockey yet.
Great fan base too. Really strong fan base.
And you brought up all these players. There's another one that you left out. Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
Has he been the Patrick Kane of old? Absolutely not. But you look at his numbers, 23 points in 26 games. He's still got the playmaking ability. He's still got the hands, the vision. He may not be prime height of his powers, Chicago Blackhawks Patrick Kane, but he has bounced back in a way that I don't think anybody saw coming. I think we saw he got the hip resurfacing surgery done, and we thought, all right, he might be a bit player. He might kind of teeter out and ride off into the sunset, but this has been quite a good second act for Patrick Kane with the Red Wings. So this is a really good team that has really started to figure it out. And tonight and Saturday are going to be a big, big challenge for this Penguins team. They get the advantage tonight because it's the second half of a back-to-back with travel for the Red Wings. But on Saturday, when it's all up to even, I think we're really going to see what the Penguins are made of and how they stack up against a team like the Red Wings.
Yeah, and I think they're going to see Gibson in that game just because he played against Winnipeg on Wednesday. They're going to give him the night off tonight, play Cam Talbot most likely, and then they'll play Gibson on Saturday. And Gibson started out his career not so good against the Penguins. Lately, though, I think he's been playing a lot better against them. So it's always fun when you see him go up against his hometown team. It's always a really cool storyline. And you mentioned it when it came to some of the numbers for the Red Wings because it is odd, Pat. You know, in terms of 5-on-5 expected goal share, they rank 20th in the NHL among all teams. And in terms of actual goals, they're 29th at 45.7%. Only Chicago, New Jersey, and St. Louis are worse in that respective category. However, they're still getting really good contributions, and they have 24 wins. So, you know, I'll be curious to see if they can keep outperforming a couple of those numbers. But right now, the vibes are great. It's probably the best vibes they've had in quite some time. I know a couple of years ago, Pat, they were really close to making the playoffs. That was probably the best the vibes had been in a while. I think right now the vibes are even higher than that. I mean, they're going to be in the race for the entire season, and you know, I wouldn't be stunned if they made the playoffs. I still got to see it first, just because it's been, you know, pretty crazy over the last decade. But they're in a great position right now. You mentioned Patrick Kane. He's the best American-born player ever. I don't really see that changing anytime soon unless Austin Matthews keeps doing his thing. But as of right now, it's Patrick Kane. You said it, 6 goals, 23 points. He's not going to be on the Olympic team. There's just simply better talented players that this country has to offer. But as you said, it is nice seeing him have a bit of a renaissance here. Andrew Kopp has 21 points this year. You know, we've already talked about the big guns. They still have JT Compher, Michael Rasmussen, Mason Appleton. You know, Nate Danielson has played in 26 games. I think he's going to be a player at this level once he gets more acclimated. But again, they're big guys to watch. Raymond, DeBrincat, Larkin, and Sider. Slow those guys down. You'll have a really good shot at winning this. And then the Red Wings power play, 4th in the NHL right now, right up there with Pittsburgh. So big test upcoming for the Penguins PK. I do think the PK has been better since Blake Lizotte came back. Shocker. I know Blake Lizotte makes a really big impact for that unit. Again, a lot of the other penalty killers just feed off his energy. They feed off how much of a puck hound he is. They feed off how much he blocks shots. So getting him back was just really crucial. And you're seeing it so far with the penalty kill, but still really big test tonight. Pat, do you have anything else to add when it comes to this Red Wings team?
I just wanted to kind of pick the ball up from what you were saying there about special teams. While the power play sitting 4th in the league for Detroit, that's the one thing that has been a consistent for them all season long. You have to slow them down, or in an ideal world, not give them any opportunities because they're going to make you pay. Meanwhile, on the other side, the penalty kill has followed that through line for the Detroit Red Wings. Started off pretty rough. It has consistently been climbing its way out of the doldrums of the league. So this is going to be a unique challenge for the Penguins tonight because this is a team that's feeling themselves. They're really starting to find their groove. Obviously, that's easy to say when you're atop of your division and you have won 7 of your last 10. The Penguins got to find a way to blunt that momentum and really play spoiler here because, let's be honest, the last 3 games, Penguins have started to find themselves a little bit. They have really started to look more like the team that we saw in October and into November, but this is a golden opportunity for them to put together a win streak and beat what has been one of the better teams, if not the best team in the NHL over the last month.
Honestly, it's more like the last 4 games. They got that started in Montreal, excuse me. Yeah, that bit of a rough game in Toronto, even though I thought the Penguins were playing all right. I thought the effort was there. They just didn't play well in their own zone. They were getting the offense, but they were giving a lot of it back defensively. I'm not really going to blame Stuart Skinner a lot for that one. And then these last couple of games, they have been fairly good, especially that game against Carolina, arguably their best game of the season, and they'll try to make it 3 wins in a row and 4 wins in their last 5 tonight against this Red Wings team. That's going to do it for this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, Pat and I are going to discuss some lineup changes that you're going to see tonight and a whole lot more, so stick around for that. Coming up right after this. But before we get to that, we have to tell you all about our first sponsor, which is FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during happy hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing, it's absolutely perfect right before the games, right before the weekend starts. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're back here on the Thursday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. That's my co-host, Patrick Damp. And Pat, it is funny, this game is going to be playing right around the time of the Rose Bowl. I am a Rose Bowl fanatic, man. It is a goal to get out to the Rose Bowl, man. It is such a beautiful stadium, beautiful destination, the parade and all that. I'm still obviously going to have all my focus on the Penguins game, but on my smaller screen, gotta have the Rose Bowl on, man. Like January 1st, it is a tradition to always watch the Rose Bowl and all the college football playoff games. But let's get into some lineup changes for tonight. First off, it will be Archer Shilovs starting in net as Dan Muse continues his goaltender rotation. No surprise there. Shilovs was very good against Chicago, made some big saves when Chicago was trying to push, and he got the night off against Carolina. He'll play here against the Red Wings, and then I'm sure Stuart Skinner will go on Saturday, so both goalies get a glimpse of the Red Wings, so no surprise again. And then Yegor Chinakhov is going to make his Penguins debut tonight. He is on the third line with Ben Kindle and Rucker McGroarty. So, Pat, I was kind of hinting at that during episodes this week where I was like, I think that's where he's going to go. Sure enough, he is, and it will be Ville Koivunen coming out of the lineup, which I'm not too surprised by. I like the underlying numbers. I think he has been fine, but I also think he could use a night or two off to really, gain some of that confidence back, just because, again, I thought when he scored that first goal, they were just going to keep coming in waves. Hasn't happened. I still think he's in his head right now, just with all phases of his game, even though the underlyings are strong. So a night or two off, I think, could do him some good. And Yegor Chinakhov will slot in on that third line with Ben Kindle and Rucker McGroarty. I like the makings of that line, just to see what it looks like with Kindle, the way he is as a playmaker, the vision that he has, the hockey IQ that he has too, setting up Chinakhov with the release that he has. I like that quite a bit. And then McGroarty, we all know what he can do with his release. His skating has improved. His two-way play, I think, has improved as well. So I like the makings of that line. I know it's not the kid line that we've seen throughout the year, and the underlyings are very strong for it, but still, let's see what Chinakhov can do on that line, at least for a game. All of the other lines are standard: Raquel, Crosby, Rust, Mantha, Novak, Brazeau, Dewar, Lazal, Achari, and then defensively, same pairs: Wotherspoon, Carlson, Kulak, Letang, and Shea and St. Ivany. You and I have talked about that third pairing. They're just going to keep rolling with it just because the last couple of games, I think it's been totally fine. And they also just reassigned Ryan Graves to Wilkes-Barre after he cleared waivers. We'll get to the trade in just a second because there was that trade yesterday. But Pat, your thoughts on Yegor Chinakhov making his debut on the third line?
I am going to open the Ark of the Covenant, so to speak, for Penguins Twitter.
Indiana Jones reference. Nice.
Ville Koivunen is becoming this era's Dominic Simone because the underlyings are great. The process is there, but the production just isn't. I'm with you in the sense that I like his overall game. You can see the process being there, but at some point it's got to turn into production. He's eventually got to start putting up points, whether it's assists, whether it's goals, and it's just not there right now. I will continue to say that I wouldn't be shocked if over the next week or so we see him reassigned to Wilkes-Barre, because I really do think he has kind of lost a little bit of swagger. We saw it early in the season. We saw it obviously last year at the end of the year when he came up for the final 8 games. He just seems to be a half step behind on just about everything, whether it's his offensive instincts, whether it's in the defensive zone. And I don't think any of that means that he's a lost cause or he's a bust or anything like that. This is just the process of a young player acclimating to the National Hockey League. It's going to take some time. He's obviously not a blue chip prospect. He's not a top of the lineup guy. He likely ceilings out at middle 6 forward. So you're going to have these slips and stumbles over the next year or so. But right now, I think this is a great opportunity for Chinakhov to enter the Penguins lineup, because you look at what makes him go. He's got the foot speed. He's got the shot. You put him with 2 players in Ben Kindle and Rutger McGroarty. Kindle has the vision to find him. McGroarty has the type of tenacity and the type of game to free up space for the both of them. So this could potentially be a really good line. I don't want to get too far ahead because Chinakhov has been wildly inconsistent up to this date, but it feels like a good jumping off point for him. As for the goalies, we're in the same spot we kind of were at the start of the year, where Skinner and Shilovs have not been playing poorly, I don't think. I know that Skinner's start to his Penguins career has been up and down. I think a lot of that is more attributed to the play in front of him rather than his actual play. So it's hard to get a read on him. He hasn't had a game where you look at the play in front of him and go, damn, man, you got to make a couple saves. You know, if you make a couple saves here and there, they probably get out with a win. It's been the opposite, where nobody is helping Skinner in front of him except for against Carolina, which everybody helped them out in that game. But we're again in that spot where either he or Shilovs has to have a game or a couple of games like Jari did, but prior to the trade, where they grab the job and say, we're going to break the rotation for a little bit and we're going to let this guy run. This is a big opportunity for Shilovs to make his mark, because we talked about it in the first segment. This is a Detroit team that is red hot. They are playing extremely well, and they have been on a meteoric rise up the standings in the Eastern Conference. So if Shilovs can have himself a big night against the Red Wings, I still think they're going to stick to the rotation into the weekend just because you've got the home and home and the back-to-back. But if he has a big performance, maybe going into next week, Dan Muse thinks, I can give Shilovs a little bit more time.
Until one of these goalies decides to really take it up another notch, I think you're just going to keep seeing the same rotation here, as you should. I mean, Dan Muse was doing this when Jari was here until Jari decided to, take it up another notch. And then he started riding him a little bit in net before the trade. So we'll see if any of these two now, Shilovs and Skinner, can do the same thing. Going back to Koivunen, though, for a second, I think people need to also understand, Pat, that he's only played 34 games. I've seen a lot of takes from people that are extremely, extremely down on him. I think it's a little premature to fully write him off. I think he hasn't been as consistent as I would have wanted him to be this year, but we also have to remember that some of these guys take longer to develop. Yeah, it's cool that Ben Kindle was ready to go a lot earlier than literally any of us expected him to be. But I think some people in the fan base also have to remember that, development isn't the same for everyone else. He's only played 34 games. Let's see how he keeps developing throughout his NHL career. Could he turn into nothing, maybe a tweener? Sure, that's always a possibility. But He's only played 34 games. I think people need to really chill out a little bit. You're not the first person I've seen that has made that Dominic Simone.
Yeah, and I don't want to, again, I want to reiterate, I'm not saying that I think the guy is a lost cause or a bust, or I'm not even really down on him. I just think that if you're the Penguins organization, if you're Dan Muse and Kyle Dubas, you look at him and go, all right, we can see the raw talent. We can see the potential. It might be time to scale it back a little bit. Let him go dominate in the AHL. Let him remember why he is the type of prospect and player that he is. And if you do that, there's a good chance, at least in my opinion, that maybe come February, March, you bring him back up and he looks a lot more like the guy he did to end last season and to start this year. I just think that this is, like you said, development in the process isn't linear. It's going to have slips and stumbles, and I think we're seeing that with Koivunen.
And you're going to have highs like you saw at the end of last season. You saw the goal that he scored against Tampa Bay, his first NHL goal. I think he can rediscover that part of his game. Just give him a night or two off. If you have to send him down to the AHL for a little bit again, that's fine too. My main point is don't write someone off after only 30 to 34 games of an NHL sample size. But I think that's going to do it for the second segment. Coming up to end the show, yes, Pat and I are going to discuss the Philip Tomasino trade that the Penguins made on Wednesday, plus discuss some of our expectations for 2026. That's all coming up right after this. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. That's my co-host, Patrick Damp. And Pat, we'll be real quick on this. The Penguins traded forward Philip Tomasino to the Philadelphia Flyers for Yegor Chinakhov, a depth defenseman. He is reporting to Wilkes-Barre, and then Tomasino is also reporting to Lehigh Valley, the Flyers AHL affiliate. The Penguins kind of did right by Tomasino here, getting him out of, their farm club. I think he's going to eventually get called up to the main Flyers squad, but I think the Penguins kind of realized that it just wasn't going to work here. He probably was not going to work his way up to the NHL main squad. I know he had been producing well in Wilkes-Barre, playing well there, but I also think in a way they wanted to do right by him and send him to a new organization for a fresh start. Again, yes, he is in Lehigh Valley, but I don't know how long that's going to be for. I think he's going to find his way up to the Flyers at some point. So we got the very rare Flyers-Penguins trade for, at least player-wise. You don't really see these two teams hook up for many trades. You obviously saw the old Mark Streit one. Yes, I know, Pat, he went through Tampa Bay first, but you know what? I'm still counting it, damn it. But, overall, totally fine trade. You get a depth defenseman in Zamula who has been okay at best at the NHL level. He's just pure depth. I don't think he's going to get too many minutes unless there's more injuries, but totally fine trade.
Yeah, it's just a change of scenery trade for both players involved. Looking at the reports from Charlie O'Connor, who covers the Flyers for the All City Network, he kind of said the opposite of what you were saying a little bit, in that unless there's injuries, which there will be in the NHL, there always is, he doesn't even see a lane for Tomasino to get into the Flyers lineup unless there's injuries. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're right in the sense that they wanted to do right by a guy who they took a chance on, who had some high moments and some low moments with the organization. But with the emergence of a few players, with the acquisition of Yegor Chinakhov, it kind of seemed like his lane had closed in Pittsburgh. And you got a depth defenseman out of it who, he isn't terrible. His biggest problem, he's slow. He has no real foot speed at all. So that's going to be a real difficult thing for him as a defenseman trying to make his way into the NHL. But at the end of the day, it was two players who needed new teams and new scenery. So they linked up for this one, and basically they cost the same amount, and that's that.
Right. And it's actually kind of funny that Charlie said the opposite. I thought he would potentially be called up quickly to play in a fourth line role on this team, but hey, that's why Charlie covers the Flyers, and I'm here on the west side of the state covering the Penguins. So I guess I'll take a little bit of an L on that. Maybe later on in the season he gets called up. I thought it was potentially going to be sooner rather than later. Still could, but if Charlie's saying that, I'm going to more so trust his judgment just because he covers the team. But that's that on that trade. Totally fine. Now, expectations for 2026. I still expect this team to compete hard on a nightly basis. I expect this team to honestly stay in the race for the rest of the season. Now, will they make the playoffs? I don't know. I'm still leaning towards no. I picked them not to make the playoffs at the beginning of the season. I'm going to stick with that. I'm not going to change my tune. I still think they're going to stay in the race. So that's one of my expectations. I also expect Kyle Dubas to stay the course. He's not going to, make sacrifices for short-term games. He's going to keep the course on this team for the rebuild on the fly. And, trade deadline's coming up. Anthony Mantha, his value is high right now. Justin Brazeau, other UFAs like Blake Lizotte, Noah Chari, etc. He's going to be taking quite a bit of calls. I don't think all of them will get moved at the deadline, Pat, but I do think you could see a player or two get moved for maybe a decent pick, a prospect coming back, maybe even a roster player. You're not going to get all three back for any of these guys, but maybe one asset, two at most. I think that's potentially doable there. But those are a couple of my expectations. I also expect Sidney Crosby to have his 21st point per game season. So that's another one right there. I also expect at some point later on this year for Sergei Murashov to make this team on a full-time basis. So there's another expectation I have right there. And so those are just a few that I've had percolating in my head. Pat, what are your expectations for this year?
Well, you took my first one, which is it's what I said in our preseason episode when we laid out our bold takes, predictions, whatever you want to call them. I do think right up until the bitter end, this team's going to be in the race to make the playoffs. Half of it is because the Eastern Conference as a whole has shown that it's deeply mid right now, except for 2 or 3 teams. So the Penguins are going to be aided by that. They don't have to make a monumental lift to stay in the race because nobody really seems to want to grab hold of this thing. So that's going to help them. I do think for the rest of this season, we see them playing meaningful hockey, which I know that a lot of fans and a lot of analysts have really been on team tank and try to get a higher draft pick. But when you look at the amount of prospects that this team has, and a lot of them already starting to play roles in the big clubs' plans, I would rather see them play actual meaningful hockey with some expectation rather than just go out there and let it all hang out with no expectation. I think that helps in their development quite a bit. My other expectation is I expect this to be a big summer for Kyle Dubas.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to get anybody overly excited and think that, oh, don't you worry, the rebuild has reached its apex and we're turning a corner. But I mean, you look at how everything is lining up going into this summer. They're going to have over $55 million in cap space to spend. They have more draft picks than I'm pretty sure any other team does going into the next few drafts. You've got the majority, if not all of your big names locked up. There are going to be a lot of teams this summer who fall very short of expectation. And we know how NHL teams operate. They don't reach their goal or they have a disappointing season. They react emotionally. And they will start selling things off that you don't expect them to sell off. I don't think they're going to go get any top tier marquee names, but some good, solid, younger players who maybe fall out of favor. Maybe you can talk them into taking a bunch of picks or prospects on. I don't think that, like you said, I don't think Dubas is going to stray from the plan. I don't expect him to sell off the farm or sell off a bunch of first round picks, but first round pick in 2 or 3 years, maybe somebody that we like who is a good prospect, or maybe even a Ricard Raquel, Brian Rust, Erik Karlsson, if they're not traded at the deadline. With the amount of cap space, the amount of draft picks that they have, I do think that this is a summer where Kyle Dubas is going to make a big move.
I can see it, especially via trade. I think that's where he's kind of done a lot of his big business here, especially in Pittsburgh. Free agency, I think you're probably going to keep seeing the same type of moves that you've seen the last couple of years where they're, short term, not a lot of big money for players that can just fill holes like Parker Wotherspoon, Justin Brazeau, for example, Anthony Mantha, another example. So I think that's what you're probably going to keep seeing in free agency. Trades, I think that's going to be where that's his bread and butter, where, it's maybe someone going out of Pittsburgh and there's a big haul coming back, or maybe he's going out there to get a really good other young player via trade for, a decent haul going back. It's not going to be a 2026 first or anything like that, especially with how deep this draft is, But I think if it's a player that's coming in terms of a big move, I think it's going to be via trade and someone who can be here for not just the next season, but I think future seasons. And I'm talking like several seasons, someone that could potentially be part of like the next core or something. But that's way down the line. We have a lot of time to really hone in on who could be available in the summer and, what free agents and all that. Again, free agency, I still think it's mainly going to be short-term, but in terms of trades, who could be available? Maybe could you trade for an RFA's rights or something like that? So I think they're going to be fairly busy. I think Kyle Dubas is going to be involved in,
I will say this, and this is maybe less of an expectation and maybe more of a bolder prediction than anything. I do think there's going to be, at the end of the season, a handful of teams that are in the draft lottery that didn't expect to be there and don't want to be there.
Like Winnipeg.
That's one that I could see where you maybe work out a deal where you do a first round pick swap, you move up in the draft, you send them a roster player or something. And instead of your big move being, oh, we went and got a big name, you moved up in the first round of the draft and got maybe a top 10, top 5 pick. And that is the big move that I could see being made. And part of that could be weaponizing that cap space that you have, where you say, hey, you got a player on that roster you're not too keen on anymore, who's got a year, maybe 2 left for a little bit more money than you'd like. We got room. We'll take them.
That's what rebuilding teams do. I mean, they did it with Connor Clifton and Matt Dumba over the summer, so I could easily see him going right back into that well this summer as well.
And the last thing, I'm with you on Sergei Murashov. You look at their cap situation right now. Stuart Skinner, UFA at the end of the year. Artie Shilov's RFA. I don't see him get in line for a real big pay increase right now. So the road will be open for Sergei Murashov going into the 26-27 season to make the team out of camp.
It's also open for Yoel Blomqvist, who's playing well down Wilkes-Barre, Harrison Brunick, who I do think will be on the team in 26-27 and will play a full season. Still TBD on whether he joins the Penguins after the World Juniors or goes back to Kamloops in the WHL. The World Juniors were getting closer to that ending. The quarterfinals are set to start, but Brunick is still there with Team Canada. There's still a lot to look forward to with this team. I know they're in a transitional period and they're rebuilding, but there's still a lot of cool storylines to follow, and we're going to be following them, every day here on the Locked On Penguins podcast. And with that, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back on Friday to recap this game against the Red Wings and get you all set for Saturday's game. And give us your takes, give us your questions for Fan Take Friday. So for Patrick Damp, I'm Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will be back on Friday.